Hey guys, this is Steven at CE Performance, here with a new video for you, and we're going to talk today about this 1966 El Camino. I've owned this car since 1996, drove it for 3 years, and it's been sitting outside ever since then. Well, just recently we took it apart, put a rotisserie together, cleaned up the body, had the body sandblasted, and now we're underway with putting this car back together, but it's going to be a little different than your average El Camino. What this is going to be is all-wheel drive, and how we're doing that is we're putting this body onto the chassis of a 2004 GMC Envoy XL. So the GMC Envoy has actually a longer wheelbase than the El Camino by about 14 inches. So we've taken the body off of the chassis, shortened the frame up to fit the wheelbase of the El Camino on it, and now we're making changes to the frame in order to make the body fit. So this will be a very unconventional restoration. My intention is not to spend a fortune on it. When it comes down to painting it, we'll see how it looks. But main thing is I want to make this old car roll again. So we've taken the Envoy, we're putting this body on it. We're able to not use the factory rusted out frame from the El Camino. The brake lines are bad, the fuel lines are bad, the body mounts are rusted out, the differential was gutted. I used the parts in another vehicle. There was no engine or transmission in it since 1999. So literally it was just like just a bare shell sitting out in the weather. And what we're doing here is we're going to resurrect this thing by using almost all good used parts from the donor vehicle, including the fuel tank, the fuel lines, all the brakes from the master cylinder to the calipers, everything is all good and reusable. We're just making changes to make it fit, and then once it's all done metalwork wise, we'll put some paint on it and just basically make a daily driver out of it. So in the back here, I just want to show you some of the work that we've already started to do. The bed was quite rusty, just from sitting out in the weather for so many years. The floors inside we're having to replace anyway. So when I took this car apart in order to do the restoration on it, I didn't really have in mind this whole body swap. But as things started to roll, the idea came up, and I did some measuring and figuring what vehicle would this be able to sit on top of. And the Envoy is actually quite close. The chassis, like I mentioned before, is actually longer between the wheelbase, and the width is almost the same. The track of the Envoy is slightly wider than the El Camino was, but the wheels are still able to tuck into the sides. It has a pretty nice stance actually. So in the back here, because the sheet metal of the bed's all been removed, mainly because it was rusty, even the reinforcing side to side and front to back that the factory used to hold the bed up was just gone. So I've removed it all completely and built this tube frame around it, which is going to be attached and welded all the way around to the box sides. And then we'll put new sheet metal over top. But in that is where we've mounted the body mounts. 2 in the middle here, there's 2 just behind the bulkhead. There's 2 just underneath the seats, and then 2 more up in the front right at the firewall. The frame is actually slightly shorter in the back than the El Camino is, so I'll have to be lengthening the frame to make the back bumper fit. And on the front it's actually a little bit longer, so we'll shorten that up to make that fit. So on the inside here we've made a lot of changes to the floor, mainly because it was rusted out anyway. And we want the ride height of the El Camino to look like stock. So in order to get the body down as low as possible on the frame, we've had to make new framework for the floor pan for the sheet metal to sit on. And we've picked up the body mounts that are already part of the Envoy frame, and we're basically just making attachment points for it. Starting to do a little bit of sheet metal work over the transfer case and the transmission inside here, and also at the same time making the seats fit, because I don't want to get too far ahead and then find out that the seats aren't going to work. So we're kind of just making things as we go. The seats have been in and out a few times, making brackets so that they sit properly, so that we can see out the window and then we're not interfering with the hump over the transfer case. So the Envoy has struts in the front and airbags in the back. The airbags in the rear are actually self-leveling. There's a sensor that's involved in the airbags pumping up. So we can make changes to the positioning of the sensor in order to basically make the vehicle ride lower in the back. And in the front, I've basically just taken the struts out, shortened the springs, put them back in, and I've taken about 3 inches out of the stock suspension to get it to the height that I want it. It's beautiful that these vehicles are so well engineered in the suspension, even like the size of the sway bar. Take a look at that. The frame is massive. How it's reinforced all around the front end here. There's huge cross members that support it side to side where the differential is hanging. There's another cross member back here. That's holding the transfer case up and the transmission. And then a little further back is the fuel tank. It's a midship tank. The XL chassis that we're using, the tank is so long and it wouldn't work in what we're doing because we had to take, I think it's actually 12 inches out of the center of the frame in order to get the wheelbase correct. So we've used a fuel tank now from the short version Envoy, which is way more common. I just got one on an auto wrecker and it just fit right in there. So I can use the fuel lines from this vehicle and the tank from the short version one. This is the section of the frame that I've cut out, and where I did it, right here, there's a factory joint right there. When these vehicles are built, the front section slides into the rear section, and right here it's plug welded, both sides, and then there's a joint weld all the way around it. The frame is actually tapered from that point here backward and where it intersected the rear one. So this was actually right, see the piece of that bracket? That used to be right on top of that. So we've actually cut it here. It goes inside this piece 2 inches, and we pulled it back together so these are double walled, overlapped. Now it's only just been partly welded, but I haven't finished plug welding or anything here because there's so many modifications being done to the frame. We'll finish all the welding up later, but just kind of wanted to show you that. So we're not having to fish plate anything really because the two pieces intersect just like they did from factory. So on the back end here, we're going to have to lengthen the frame. That's the factory back mount for the El Camino, where it attached to the original frame. This actually is where the trailer hitch bolts on to the Envoy. So not sure yet exactly how to do it, whether we're just going to add to this or maybe have something bolt in, but this will be extended out so we can catch these two mounts there. Thanks a lot for watching to the end of the video. Thank you so much for commenting. I will answer any comments that are left below, and we look forward to putting out more videos on this project and other ones in the near future.